Well, good day, folks. It's James here at ProPix TV in Vancouver, British Columbia, once again coming to you live for another episode of Live Chat with James. And tonight we're actually going to do something a little different in terms of the conversation and the show. We're going to take a look at Raphael Rowe's foundation. Now, a lot of you may know Raphael Rowe from the TV series World's Toughest Prisons. Now, in fact, he went into many prisons around the world in the multi-series episodes or multi-season series episodes where he went in and explored and lived as an inmate to get a better understanding as to the conditions, the human rights issues, and other things that are problems within the criminal justice system, not only in North America, but around the world. And to be quite honest, he faced some of the toughest and scariest people in the world. He went in on the premise of going in as a prisoner, staying overnight, staying in there as the inmates do, and really experiencing through immersion what was going on in those prisons. Now, some of them are in third world countries that the conditions are nothing less than horrific. The United Nations and other agencies around the world, of course, try to guide the different countries and nations on their treatment of prisoners and their criminal justice systems. And we know that even in North America, the systems are not functioning as they should. Now, we know that Raphael Rowe has had this series, but he also spun off an organization or foundation called the Raphael Rowe Foundation. And essentially, he works towards increasing conditions in the betterment for the reduction of recidivism rates when inmates leave prisons. So he has gone from being a prisoner himself to being an advocate worldwide for prisoner rights. Now, Raphael Rowe, for those of you who are not familiar with him, he was wrongfully accused of a murder. He was locked up for years upon years before being able to prove his innocence and being exonerated. After his release, he went on to be an advocate, be a voice for those who may not have a voice and for those who are not being heard. And when he did so, he didn't just do it in a regular, normal way that some people do, or most people would, and that is fighting for change within their own justice system that has impacted them. Instead, he took it as a global initiative, a global force, so to speak, that he did not sit quietly. He started to explore the issues and conditions of inmates around the world, and that goes from pretrial incarceration in some countries for a decade, where people are incarcerated pending trial for the accused crimes that they are facing. And again, they can face, a decade in prison because the systems are so broken in some of the third world and other nations that it really, really impacts the lives of the innocent and the families of those who are found guilty. Regardless as to what you feel about guilt and innocence, the fact is that everyone should have the right to a speedy trial and to be fairly taken through the justice system. And that is not always the case. If you've watched World's Toughest Prisons, you'll see some of the conditions that inmates live in. You'll see some of the issues that their families face. You'll see some of the issues that the guards face, the violence or the hands up in the air and walking away from it, and essentially letting the inmates run the asylum. And that happens in a lot of prisons as well. And it is because of underfunding. It is because many people's attitudes towards the criminal justice system is that it is there to punish and warehouse criminals, as opposed to the true purpose is to, of course, have some type of consequence for behavior and illegal activity, but also to rehabilitate. And I think that is the premise that is most overlooked in the prison systems around the world, and that is the rehabilitation. Of course, with rehabilitation, it comes at a cost. And that is something that prison systems and correctional systems around the world face a problem with. And that is getting adequate funding to really have impactful and long-term success with anti-recidivism and for inmate violence, a reduction of inmate on guard violence, and so forth. Now, we know that in North America, in Canada, the US in particular, or in Western nations, there is an issue with corruption within the prison systems, but it is very small in comparison to the population of the prison system. Within the United States, we know that they have the highest rate of incarceration of any developed nation on earth. And that system is also failing. And what is being looked at now is shipping inmates who are U.S. citizens to other nations such as El Salvador, Colombia, and the likes, in order to have these foreign prison systems house U.S. inmates. Now, the real problem here is that there is not the same level of care. There is not the duty of care. There is not the respect of human rights. This is a major problem for inmates going out of country. Now, this also should be looked at that with the inmate system, whether it is a life sentence or a 3-year sentence, that connection to family and community can be instrumental in relieving some of the stress that people feel while in the prison system. And with that stress, of course, as it's reduced, you're able to reduce some of the anger, some of the frustration, some of the emotion from the inmates by having them with regular contact of family members, friends, and seeing some type of outside world through that communication. Even if it is just a phone call or a monthly visit, it helps to keep some level of grounding there for the inmates. By removing that, you are going to increase the anger, the violence, and many other problems that are associated with housing large numbers of inmates, and that is a problem. And so when you look at the option of the U.S. looking to outsource their criminal incarceration facilities to countries such as El Salvador and Guatemala or Colombia or anywhere else, it really takes away from that support system. And if those inmates are returned to the U.S., chances are they are not going to be ready to be put back on the streets after they've had their dignity. What little dignity they have in prison in the U.S. will be stripped away completely by sending them to these third world nations and other countries. So again, it's about not only the impact and effectiveness of the U.S. judicial system and what needs to be fixed there, but it also has to look at what conditions they are considering sending inmates to. Now, with the Raphael Rowe, sorry about that, folks. With the Raphael Rowe Foundation, he is really an advocate for prisoner rights. He is an advocate for improving conditions of inmates around the world. And it's not that he wants everybody to go free. It is the fact that he wants them to at least have some type of dignity that should be afforded to every human being, regardless as to what mistakes they've made in their life. And when you look at inmates who are going to be potentially released on parole or just released at the end of their sentence, you want to have some type of rehabilitation programs in place. This is especially true when you look at violence within our streets, whether that's in Canada, the United States, or other parts of the world. You have a growing population that is seeing less of a future when it comes to the traditional jobs and employment, education, all of that. When times are tough, people make bad choices, and that is a part of being human. Now, to lock them up and to throw away the key is not necessarily a solution. Maybe in some cases, I could argue that yes, it is a solution for some, but for the majority, it's about rehabilitation. Some prisons, such as those located in Texas or Georgia and other states that use inmates as labor, of course, that is essentially slave labor where they make very, very minimal amounts of money. A good example of this in the disparity of revenue would be looking at Cal Fire with the recent fires in Los Angeles. Now, the inmates who were out there battling the blazes, risking their lives, trying to save property and to battle the blazes back and extinguish them, or at least to get them under some sense of containment, were getting $5 to $10 per day to risk their lives. And they cannot, in most cases, get jobs in the firefighting field upon release because of regulation, criminal background checks, all of that. So again, it doesn't necessarily mean that they did something that that would put them in a position of not being trusted as firefighters. Quite the opposite. Many of them would be very qualified for that. They just got into a bad situation at a bad time in their life and made a mistake. But again, they are, as a result of just the fact that they have a criminal conviction, regardless as to what it is, they don't have that ability to get employment when they are released in that field, which I think that is really sad, that we can trust them to battle the blazes when they are incarcerated and being taken out of the prisons to fight fires, but we can't when they are actually on the streets and looking to make a living and be productive parts of society and contributing members of communities. I think that is really a point that needs to be looked at in a process that maybe needs to be revamped to some degree. Of course, I'm not saying that any inmate should be allowed to take positions of trust, but I'm saying that there are some that where exceptions should be made. Now, let's take a look at what's going on, with the Raphael Rowe Foundation. Now, I have been in favor of prisoner rights, of systems that help to make prisoners better for release, that help to build families, keep them connected to their families so they have that support inside and on release, and so that families are less broken and there's less chance of generational crime within the family. So again, it's all about looking at the overall long-term costs. And to me, it makes sense that when you are mandating that inmates must do work while they're incarcerated, it would make more sense to me to mandate that all inmates must have a grade 12 education or a graduate level education. And if they don't, then they be forced to get that education while they are incarcerated. Instead of sitting in a cell 20 hours a day, they could be getting educated. They could be getting their high school graduation or their GED. They could be seeing that there is a potential for a future without crime for them. And I think that that goes a long way to not only building up self-esteem, but also to give them life skills, to give them the ability to move forward in life in a very productive manner. So let's go back to the Raphael Rowe Foundation and what they are doing with a sport called Street Racket. And Street Racket, I'm not sure the exact rules of it, but let's take a look at the principles in terms of what the purpose is when it comes to its relation with the prisons and the prisoners, because this is very fascinating to me that they are building this game at this one here, and I'll read the article that I was sent from the Raphael Rowe Foundation, and it goes on to explain the different parts of the game and how it's transforming certain prisons. And this was done at a prison, I believe it is in the UK. Let's pull that up there, if I can see that. There we go. So they have introduced this program where not only are the inmates and the guards playing together in this sport of street racket, but they also build the rackets, they manufacture them on site, which helps to create industry within the prison. It helps to give them a sense of purpose and actually a bit of ownership in the game, that not only are they playing, but they are actually making the products in which they are using to play the game itself. But it also bridges a gap between the inmates and the prison guards, or the COs, and that is that they play together. There are, as you'll see in a video that'll come up, you'll see where there are actually guards and inmates where there's a double paddle where it's got a handle on both sides. And it takes real cooperation and communication for the two players to be able to use that one paddle together. And you'll see that, there may be a guard on one side and an inmate on the other of this paddle. But again, the communication and the teamwork that it takes between the two really helps to build that relationship and to reduce the level of anxiety between the prisoner and the guards. And we know that inmate on guard violence is quite high. Guard on inmate violence is high. So anytime that you can take some of that pressure down, some of that stress off, and actually humanize the corrections officers to the inmates and vice versa, I think that it goes a long way to reduce some of the stress and the boiler pressure that is in the facilities. And although this one here, as I said, I believe is in the UK, it definitely could have some advantages in Canadian, in European, as you see, that is in the UK, in the US, in Canada, all the different prisons. I think that little things like this can make a difference to progress the system further in a positive manner. Now, we have to keep in mind that, yes, some inmates are in prisons for very serious and very violent offenses. And that is a different beast altogether, so to speak. What I'm referring to are the people who are looking at some type of release at some point. Now, not to say they should exclude lifers, but I'm just saying that there is a balance of where resources should be allocated. But at the same time, I also think that there is going to be a point in the next decade where you're going to see a big change in the correction system in places such as California that have three strikes laws. And I think that there is going to be a point where California realizes that there are better ways to handle the prison population and incarceration levels, as opposed to giving three strikes laws the validity that they do at this point. I think that has to change. And if they went to a more rehabilitative approach, they could save a lot of money on the criminal justice system and the prison system as a whole. And I know that California is one of the states that has recently gone back on prisons being privatized and passed legislation or laws there that prohibit the privatization of prisons and are starting to take them back under state control, which I think is a good thing. I don't think that prison systems should be privatized. Even the privatization of things like the commissary, of the telephone systems, those are huge profit makers for many corporations at the cost to families who in many cases don't have that extra money, but they struggle to get through, and they also struggle to put money in the inmate accounts so that the prisoners can at least get some basic toiletries that are, much needed. A pair of running shoes or socks or underwear, different things. I mean, it is a struggle, but it should be looked at in terms of who's making a profit off of this. And I think that is wrong, because especially when you look at the hundreds of millions of dollars that have been made off of the telephone systems alone, charging exorbitant amounts for inmates to speak to their children, to their wives, to their husbands, to, parents and all of that. I think that is a roadblock that is put in unnecessarily in order to punish and not to rehabilitate. So I think that they need to really look at the opening up more communication abilities for inmates to speak to their families and keep those ties to the community and to their support network. But let's go through what the Raphael Rowe Foundation puts out in terms of the street racket and what their hope and purpose is. And that is exactly the point, is that they are giving prisoners a level of discovery of hope and purpose, where they not only play the game, as I said, they also manufacture the paddles and such, but they also learn how to be coaches and instructors to help others understand the game, how to play it, and the ins and outs, and refereeing, all that sort of thing. So they learn all of that, which is also great for communication and building relationships outside of the prison system as well. It's a very valuable life skill that is being brought in through the guise of sport. So restore mental and physical well-being, they highlight, and that structured activity helps to reduce stress, violence, and mental weight of confinement. And once again, as I said, that's not only the violence towards inmate to inmate, but also inmates on guards, guards on inmates, and so forth. It helps to bring that stress level down some as well. In terms of building leadership and purpose, inmates train as coaches, mentoring others, and developing vital life skills, as I've covered already. That is an amazing benefit of this. Creating real employment pathways. Prisoners manufacture street racket equipment, gaining hands-on experience for life after release. Again, it gives them job skills. It gives them something besides the criminality that they've been trained to or that they're mentally conditioned to, and teaches them that there is something beyond that world. And I think that is really the biggest thing, is to give them hope, to restore a level of self-esteem and self-confidence, and this is a great way of doing it. Now, they also say that it is great for conflict resolution because street racket promotes empathy and open dialogue between prisoners and officers, enhancing communication and collaborative environment. This approach helps reduce stigma, support rehabilitation, and leads to positive outcomes. Again, I mean, you are giving them a recreational point of stress relief, but also you are giving them some skills that they can take out from behind those walls and actually utilize to make their life better. And that is what it's all about, because when you make an inmate's life better on release, you are also making it better for the community, you are making it safer for the community, and you are having an impact. And that's why I really respect Raphael Rowe, because he is making an impact, he is making a change in the world, and it is far-reaching, and I really credit him for that. If you have the ability to give and to support the foundation, by all means, just Google Raphael Rowe Foundation, and you can definitely support their initiatives and their work. And I'll let this video play so you can hear it.
I think it's more positive thinking, you get me? It's getting at yourself, being more creative and just helping getting at yourself, and a more positive mindset. Doing a long time in jail, instead of just going down to the block and spending a lot of time in your cell and that, coming at yourself and doing activities like this just make you more positive and just make you look a bit more forward. Anyone can play the game, and it's simple, and you can adjust it to how you want to play it as well. I think you can build positive relationships playing this as well. Staff, prisoners, get me, bring everyone together. You can play teams as well, stuff like that. So I think building that relationship with staff as well just makes it a more positive place. If you've got conflict with staff members and you don't get along with them and you can't enjoy sports with them, I think it just makes it more of a hostile situation. But stuff like this, better relationships. Cause from here, when we go back onto the wing, we're gonna have better relationships. You get me? We can laugh about it. We can do it on another day. And no, I think I will be playing this again, and it was fun. And I hope to see you again. With my certificate as well, I think I'm gonna try to help other people on the wing.
That's good.
As well.
That's good. Thank you very much, man. Thanks for taking part.
Yeah.
So yeah, as you can see, it definitely plays a positive role in the prison system for the inmates. But again, it is also a great way for the guards to interact with the inmates in a non-threatening, non-violent way that takes away that power struggle or that power dynamic in a different way. Even if it is only for 30 minutes while they're playing the game, it helps to build relationships, to build a respect, and to build a trust that may have been lacking previously. So let's take another look at a different video here that just kind of gives you a bit of them playing and practicing, training, and so forth. So again, this footage is courtesy of the Raphael Rowe Foundation. You can see him there with glasses on and working with the inmates and the guards, and really just leading through example and putting his money where his mouth is, that he is behind the gates, he's behind the walls of these prisons, and he is interacting with the inmates. He's not just sitting out in an ivory tower somewhere dictating what he thinks will work. He gets in there and tries to introduce it to the system to make a positive change for all of those involved. So you can see there that both inmates and prison guards are coaches, they are players, and they actually interact together in a stress-free environment as much as a prison can be stress-free. But it reduces, again, that power dynamic comes down to a zero where they're almost on equal ground for that time that they're playing the game. And here's one that I found interesting, the double paddle, and I don't know if that's for goalies or what. As I said, I have to learn more about this game. But at the end of the day, you can see the cooperation, the communication that's needed for those two to hold that paddle together and to play together like that. It takes that level of communication that maybe the inmates hadn't had before, or that sense of teamwork, that sense of actually working together with someone else as an equal as opposed to, again, a power dynamic. And I think that is amazing. So whether it's inmates, whether it's inmate and guard, or if it's guards, I think that that is a great way to build that communication and that trust with each other, at the simplest of levels. So again, I think that's amazing. And I'll play one more video here for you, and this is actually a bit different than this actual topic. But it is in relation to Raphael Rowe and whether or not he still keeps in contact with inmates through different prison systems and revisits them after the show is done. And this is another reason I find it very interesting, is that he does actually have that involvement, that follow-up, where he does go back. He does visit the prisons again. He does check on certain inmates that made an impression on him. And yeah, it would be nice maybe one day we'll get Mr. Rowe onto the show for an interview and a conversation about his organization, about the TV show, and about other topics. But yeah, let's take a look at this video.
So I've come back to Resina Prison Penitentiary 17 here in Moldova, where I met Max and Lillian almost 3 years ago when I shot Inside the World's Toughest Prison Season 6 here. And I'm here to try and introduce some humanity to this prison, but also to find out how Max and Lillian are getting on, because lots of you have asked me what their life is like and whether I come back to prisons. Well, here I am to try and find out what life has been like for these guys in the last 3 years and whether there's been any progress in their challenge to be released.
Okay, so that's where he leaves us. He leaves us hanging on this clip that was on the Raphael Rowe Foundation email that I got, or the Vimeo page, I guess. So yeah, I'm going to have to reach out to Mr. Rowe and find out what exactly the follow-up was there, because it's got me curious, and I'm sure it's got you curious out there as well. But again, it just shows his level of dedication to the people that he's interacted with in the prisons, and just trying to be an advocate for the prison systems around the world. But he doesn't just stand outside and hold a sign. He doesn't dictate or diminish the work of the inmates, of the guards, of the system. Instead, he wants to work with both sides and everybody equally to try to find some level of improvement for the conditions, some level of improvement for actual rehabilitation, and some level of cooperation from all sides to find a solution to reducing violence within the prison systems, to lifting up the living conditions in some of the prisons that he's been in. If you have never watched the show, I really encourage you to search on Google, search World's Toughest Prisons. And I'm not sure which network it's streaming on, or which streaming platform. But again, if you've never seen the show World's Toughest Prisons, I encourage you to check it out. Raphael Rowe, again, was an inmate at a prison system for years upon years before he was able to finally prove his innocence and to be released, and to start working as an advocate for inmates around the world. So again, a great level of respect for this man, for his foundation. If you have the ability to donate and wish to donate, by all means, just Google search the Raphael Rowe Foundation and make a contribution. The work that he is doing is rare out there in today's world, to actually stand up for those who may be not able to stand up for themselves, to give a voice to those who may be silenced, and to give some semblance of normalcy to a system that is rife with violence and negativity, stress and depression. He makes it a little easier for the inmates that he interacts with, and hopefully for inmates that benefit from his programs, from the foundation, and from hope of better days ahead for all. So again, thanks for tuning in. This is James Kuzno with ProPix TV in Vancouver, British Columbia. This, as again, has been Live Chat with James. It is, again, my privilege to be here to have these conversations with you as an audience. I hope you enjoy the program as much as I enjoy bringing it to you, and I hope that you get something out of it. With that said, I also get things out of it when I read comments and people give me information and different conversations online throughout the live program that, I learn as well, and I enjoy that. So by all means, feel free to put your comments in the comment section. If you are watching a repeat of the live chat on TikTok or on YouTube or anything else, by all means, leave comments. I check those as well, and I love reading what people are thinking about the different episodes, about the different topics, and also I take topic ideas and story suggestions. So if you have a story that you think is interesting that's worth following up, or if you need help resolving something that we can report on and hopefully put some pressure in the right places to resolve a problem that you're having, whether it is with fraudulent practices of businesses or corrupt activities or whatever, reach out. We're always happy to work to try to make the world a better place. That's what it's all about. Once again, I'm James Kuzno in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, with Live Chat with James. Take care all from the ProPix TV studios. Stay safe.